Everything you believe about your life right now, your relationships, your success, your identity, your sense of what's real, most of it is a story. Not a lie someone told you. Something far more dangerous. A story you built yourself, brick by brick, because the alternative was too painful to face. And the terrifying part? You don't feel like you're living in a story. You feel like you're living in reality. That's exactly how it works. Plato didn't write about shadows on a cave wall to make a philosophical point. He wrote about it because he had watched human beings, intelligent, capable, sincere human beings, dedicate their entire lives to things that weren't real. Not because they were stupid, because reality, the actual unfiltered version of it, is uncomfortable in ways that most people are not willing to tolerate. So the mind builds a cave, furnishes it, calls it home, and then defends it viciously against anyone who tries to open the door. You are about to find out if you're living in one. The first sign is that your identity is built on what other people can see. Think about how you introduce yourself. Think about what you lead with, your job title, your relationship status, your income, your neighborhood, your reputation in whatever room you're trying to impress. Now ask yourself this. If all of that disappeared tomorrow, who would you be? Not what would you do. Who would you be? Most people go completely silent at that question. Not because they're thinking, because they've just realized they don't have an answer. That silence is the shadow. That silence is the cave wall. You have confused the image of yourself with yourself. And the image requires constant maintenance, constant audience, constant confirmation that it's still there. This is not confidence. This is a very sophisticated form of terror. The second sign is that you avoid the questions that matter most. There are thoughts you push away before they fully form. There are conversations you redirect before they go too deep. There are quiet moments, usually late at night, when something surfaces, something real and heavy and unresolved, and you reach for your phone before you can feel it completely. You are not lazy. You are not weak. You are doing what every human animal does when it encounters a truth that threatens the structure it has built its entire life around. You flee, intelligently, skillfully. So skillfully that you've convinced yourself you're not running at all. Plato understood that the prisoners in the cave weren't being held there by chains. They were held there by comfort, by familiarity, by the terrifying possibility that everything they had oriented their lives around was a projection and nothing more. The third sign is harder to admit. The people around you reflect back a version of you that you've carefully curated. Your social circle, the friends you kept and the ones you quietly let drift, the relationships you maintained and the ones you escaped, they did not arrange themselves randomly. You selected for people who would confirm the story, who would not ask the hard questions, who would laugh at the right moments and stay quiet at the right moments, and never look at you with the eyes that see too much. And you call this community. You call this love. Sometimes it is, but often it is something else. It is an audience. And an audience, no matter how loyal, cannot save you from yourself. It can only applaud while you perform. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. The fourth sign. You measure your life in metrics that someone else invented. Somewhere along the way, before you were old enough to ask whether you agreed, a set of measurements was handed to you. This is what success looks like. This is the age by which you should have achieved it. This is the size of the house, the quality of the relationship, the number in the account, the reaction on people's faces when you tell them what you do. And you took these measurements and made them your own. Not because you chose them, because the cave was already built when you arrived, and everyone inside it was using the same ruler, and it didn't occur to you until much later, if it occurred to you at all, that you could put the ruler down. The shadow you've been chasing your entire life was never yours to begin with. It belonged to someone who died before you were born, or to an industry that profits from your inadequacy, or to a parent who was themselves measuring their shadow against someone else's. The fifth sign is that certainty comforts you more than truth does. You have opinions you have never seriously examined. Beliefs you hold with a grip that tightens whenever someone comes close to questioning them. You've mistaken the intensity of your conviction for the validity of it. But Plato knew, and this is perhaps the most dangerous thing he ever wrote, that the people most committed to the shadows are not the weakest people in the cave. They are the most practiced. The ones who have learned to read the shadows with such precision, to predict their movements, to explain their patterns, that they have become authorities on unreality. They are the most resistant to the light, not because they are evil, because they have the most to lose. You may be one of them, not in the dramatic sense, in the quiet, everyday sense of someone who has built expertise in a world that isn't quite real and now cannot afford to question it. The sixth sign will cut close. You have mistaken movement for progress. You are busy, relentlessly, exhaustingly busy. Your calendar is full. Your goals are set. Your habits are tracked. Your progress is measurable, visible, and constantly shared with people who are equally busy measuring their equally visible progress. And yet, somewhere underneath all of that motion, there is a stillness that frightens you. A question that all the doing is designed to drown out. Not, am I doing enough? You ask that question constantly. The deeper one. The one you haven't asked in years. Am I doing the right thing entirely? Not tactically. Existentially. Is this the life I would have chosen if I had started from truth instead of from fear? Busyness is the most socially acceptable form of avoidance ever invented. The cave can be very productive. The shadows can be optimized. You can hit every target and miss the entire point of being alive. The seventh sign is the most revealing of all. You are more afraid of being wrong than of wasting your life. Read that again. Because what it means is that the ego, the constructed self, the story, has become more precious to you than the actual experience of being alive. You will spend years in a relationship you know is wrong rather than face the moment of admission. You will stay in a career that is slowly hollowing you out, rather than accept that the decade you spent building it may have been a decade pointed in the wrong direction. You will defend a belief you privately doubt, rather than sit with the unbearable exposure of not knowing. This is the core mechanism of the cave. It is not stupidity. It is the very human, very understandable prioritization of a false but stable identity over a true but terrifying freedom. And here is what Plato actually believed, stripped of the academic language and the philosophy textbooks. The examined life is not a comfortable life. The person who turns toward the light does not emerge into a warm, welcoming clarity. They emerge blinking, disoriented, uncertain, stripped of the certainties that made them feel safe. And the people they leave behind in the cave, the ones who loved them and knew them and confirmed their story, those people will not celebrate their awakening. They will call it a crisis. They will call it arrogance. They will say you've changed, as if change were a betrayal, as if the person you were performing was the person you actually were. The examined life is lonely in ways that no one warns you about, but it is the only life that is actually yours. Most people will watch this and feel it without acting on it. They will recognize themselves in one or two of these signs, feel a brief, sharp discomfort, and then do what the mind has always done with truths it isn't ready for. File it away. Return to the cave. Turn on something louder. But some of you won't. Some of you are at the exact moment where the discomfort has finally outgrown the comfort, where the story has started to crack at the edges and the light is coming through, whether you invited it or not. If that's you, then the question is no longer whether you're living an illusion. The question is what you're willing to give up to stop. Because the only thing standing between you and reality is not ignorance. It is the version of yourself you spent a lifetime convincing everyone, including yourself, is real. That version is not you. It never was. The question Plato left open, the one he refused to answer for anyone, is whether you love the truth more than you love the shadow of yourself. You already know which one you've been choosing.